Moving on to Plan Commission items, discussion and possible action on the following. Pine Hollow Court LLC, applicant is Todd Gillette, located at West 241, South 4130 Pine Hollow Court. Recommendation from the Plan Commission is to approve the planner's recommendation, subject to his conditions. Is there a motion?
I move that we accept the recommendation from the planning committee and approve it.
Second.
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to current business, discussion and possible action on the following. 2014 to 2016 operator licenses for Michael Benning at Legend at Merrill Hills. Is there a motion?
I'd make a motion to approve Michael Benning's application for an operator license.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. B, reject all current bids returned to the town hall for the sewer lateral. This is on our RFP that we opened 2 weeks ago, I believe. Those were all substantially very high, from 51,000, I believe, to 123,000. We have subsequently received additional bids that are significantly less, and my suggestion would be that we authorize the clerk to send out a second RFP to the previous bidders as well as the two new ones, and probably on a pretty short time frame, and get this project moving again.
Mr. Chairman, I will make the motion to reject all of the bids that were received, and I believe opened on, I believe it was June 11th, also move.
Second,
Second that.
discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. On to C, the Town Hall Septic Project, and as I had said, authorize the clerk to send out a second RFP to the previous bidders as well as the two new ones that we have received. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion to send out a new town hall septic RFP.
Second,
Second that.
discussion?
Just a quick question. I'm assuming that this bid will be a little bit different and more detailed than the prior one?
I have requested more information from Janelli, and then we are also going to take out restoration work.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, point of clarification, it's my understanding that you're sending out requests under the procedure used for under $25,000. You're not sending out a full bid pack.
No, a full bid.
And I just want to make sure, the full bid pack?
Yeah.
You're rebidding the project?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't realize that, okay. Then I don't know that you can live within, did you talk to the end, who did the last bid pack?
Chris, right?
Chris Janelli.
And does he think he can do it in the time limit we talked about this afternoon, by the end of next week? There's no way. I think it's a 2-week notice and all kinds of stuff if you're doing. I thought you were just making a request for proposals with the understanding they were coming under 25. If you're doing the full bidding all over again, he's got to put the bid specs back together again, and he's got to notice it. There aren't a lot of shortcuts you can take under following the formal bid, public bid law. You aren't going to make the next meeting, I don't think. I just want to tell you that.
Okay.
So that's my clarification. If you anticipate they're coming in under 25,000, then you don't need to do the full bid, you just do a request for proposals. If they're over the 25, then you have to do the full bidding, and you've got to meet all the time limits and give all the notice.
All right, so if they come, if there is some bids that come in under 25 and some that come in over 25, can we still just do a request for proposals and look at the ones that are under 25,000?
Yes.
Okay? And that would be my suggestion, that that's the way we should.
I mean, there's no real law on how to do requests for proposals. I mean, but Chris will know how to do it. I mean, if you ask him to do it, he did it once before. I mean, right? That's how we got the 2 for tonight, is we put out a request or a feeler for proposals, or request for proposals.
Simple phone calls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because there is no, I don't know of a law that says how you do it. There's a very specific law you have to do and you have to follow if you're gonna, if it's, you anticipate it's over 25,000. If you guesstimate it's going to be under 25,000, you do request, if they all came in for over 25, you'd have to reject them and you'd have to do the bid. If some of them come in below, under the request for proposals, you know, then you just look at the ones that are under 25, because you can't accept it if it's over 25, because you didn't follow the bidding law.
Okay.
So the first round that we did was an RFP, was it not?
That's correct. We did a full bid.
No, that's,
packet.
I asked if it was an RFP, request for proposal. So you're saying it was not, it was a full bid?
It was a full bid, 2-week notice
Okay.
with a full spec packet that went out.
Well, given the 6 data points that we have, I mean, I don't know that it's reasonable to believe that they're gonna come in under 25,000.
We've already got one in-house that is.
One,
Yeah.
out of 6. And then my other question is, what restoration are we eliminating? The, everything, so asphalt,
Asphalt,
road cutting, all of it?
no, just the asphalt and the asphalt replacement, and then whatever work in the park would have to be
Yeah,
restored.
we're about that, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Question? Mr. Macy, even though the proposal does not include the restoration and the asphalt, does that not have to also be considered in the project and gonna put us over the 25,000?
That's an excellent question, and I asked the chairman that question today because I was not privy to what the current RFP is for and whether it's included in the current RFP. I was led to believe through that discussion, but you should have that discussion amongst yourselves. When I asked that same question today, you can't separate a portion of the project in order to avoid the public bidding law. And that's what I pointed out to him. It was his feeling that the restoration should be done apparently, and I don't put words in his mouth. Well, let me just answer the question. I was told it would not be a violation of the public bidding law by separating that out because it was not a part of the project and it didn't have to be part of the project, it would be done differently, and I may be paraphrasing that wrong. So I think you need to have that discussion. I had that same concern, I asked that same question, I was told it would not be violating the public bidding law. It is something that would not necessarily be part of the hookup portion of the project, so.
Yeah, but the only thing I don't understand, they're digging the driveway up to put the sewer line in, how can it not be part of the project?
Well, my answer to that is hypothetically, if you were going to redo the driveway anyway and do that as a separate project, that would be a separate project. I don't know that to be a fact. But if you're asking me hypothetically, how could it not be part of the project, that would be one answer. If you have a road contractor that is under contract to do your roads and he can do it, he or she can do it at a better price, you would say, I'm not gonna put that in as part of this project because I can get a better price. If your own people could fix the driveway, our own staff, you would say, well, we don't need to include it as part of the project. So those are 3 examples. I don't know if any of them are realistic. I'm just saying I could think of 3 examples off the top of my head where they wouldn't necessarily. Now, does common sense tell me if they dig it up, they should repair it as part of the project? Sure, that's why I asked the same question this afternoon. But I think I should defer to the chairman. He's done all the research. I just want to say, I thought about that same issue when I read it. It's the same reason I'm sure you asked it, what is not being included and why? It sort of screams out at you, and so these are good questions and good discussion. But I think I should turn it back to all of you, because it's not really illegal necessarily. I told you what the law is, you can't separate a portion of the project just to avoid the public bidding law.
The reason that we would separate that out, an underground sewer contractor is not a guy who's gonna specialize in asphalt, he's gonna sub that out.
right.
Or in landscape restoration. And the fact is that our guys can do the work and probably do it at a much more cost-effective rate than if we have somebody else subcontract.
But even if our guys do it, don't you still need to figure that it's gonna pull them away from something else, so don't you still have to figure that in the price of the project?
Not because it would pull, not because they pull them away.
But they're being paid.
They're
And
being
they-
paid, But they may say, well, we're also gonna go and fix potholes and we're gonna do, you know, everything that needs to be done in the parking lot at the same time. So again, I don't know the facts well enough to know whether it all, the contractors would say, did you separate it out solely to avoid the public bidding law? So you need a reason why you would not. The chairman's indicated what he thinks the reasons are. We can do it ourselves. I mean, we might be able to dig it up ourselves. I don't know. I mean, you have to decide what the project is. And so you have to make that decision of whether the restoration, which is what we're speaking of specifically, is part of the project or not part of the project. Does that make sense? I think you can have a little bit of leeway to say, I want to do it ourselves and not hire somebody else to. Maybe a better example, you're gonna do a project, and as part of the road project, all the trees need to be trimmed in that area, in the right of way, or maybe even removed. And if our people had the ability to do that, we wouldn't include it in the project, because the trees have to be removed. We might decide we're gonna do that ourselves, and it needs to be done anyway, and there's dead trees or whatever, and so we're gonna remove, I'm trying to give you an example that's a little different. That's sort of my modus of operandi, because it gives us thinking about a little differently. And so if we had the staff, we're out trimming trees anyway, we were gonna have to remove those trees, we'd say, okay, we'll remove the trees and not include those as part of the project. I don't know if the driveway is the same kind of comparison or not, you have to decide that, in all honesty. Fair enough?
What's the hesitation to go out to a bid?
Just time. We can delay it for another couple of weeks and then.
So
more
it takes
work
another
meetings.
2 weeks or what? Well, what's the concern with it taking another 2 weeks?
There is no concern, it's just a project that's been around for
Okay.
years, and it's time to put it to bed, in my opinion.
Okay.
But if it's a pleasure of the board to send it out for a full bid package, then let's do it. Supervisor Fisher?
If I could, I think, listening to all of it, my preference would be to put it back out to business. Even back up for a minute, I asked Mr. Lacy, I don't know that we have any obligation, I don't really have any legal obligation to do it, but I think the bidders that we did have, I think it would be appropriate on behalf of the town to formally advise them we rejected all of the bids, and I think in the same breath would be to tell them that we're rebidding it, and again, they can compete again. And I mean, all of the discussion and what ifs we're having here, I think, go away if we rebid it. And I share your sense, the anxiety, we need to get on with the show, is taking far too long, but I'd be more comfortable with rebidding it, and I think it erases all of these what ifs that we've been talking about for the past 15 minutes.
Is there a motion in that comment?
Sure, I will move that we go back out to bid, that we notify the original bidders that the bids have been rejected, and that we go back out and publicly rebid, including the removal of the restoration work that we will either do by separate contract or with our own forces, and I would further indicate that the town clerk can appropriately identify the schedule for the rebidding process. I so move.
Second.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, D, approve sending out RFPs for road work. We've got a list of roads that we intend on paving and crack filling and boiler slide for this year. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion to put out the RFP for the planned road work for 2000.
Second.
I'll second.
Discussion.
One very quick comment, I would simply like to publicly acknowledge that Supervisor Durr and Jerry Noley from our Public Works Department put in a tremendous amount of time and effort to survey the existing roads. I mean, some of the rest of us put in a bit of time, but they really put in a tremendous amount of effort, and in the process of so doing, trying to identify availability of the money will dictate it, but what we are attempting to accomplish this year and in future years. So I'd simply like to recognize them for a great effort that's a great resource to the town.
Thank you. There was a second on that, yes? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to E, approval for the town clerk treasurer to dispose of and or sell old computer and sound system equipment. This is the old equipment that used to be up here and in the closet behind us. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to authorize the clerk treasurer to sell the old equipment that is listed on item 8E of the packet material, specifically 7 items.
Second?
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to F, approval to spend $1,500 to update the town website. Clerk Nicholas, you've done some pretty extensive negotiating and seeking out of a contractor to perform this so that it would function better with our new sound system and new video system, as well as other functions on the website, so go ahead.
It's true. We are looking to upgrade our website. Both Aaron and myself are gonna work with a vendor to totally change the website into using a different type of template and on-demand minutes, agenda items, and packets. This will allow residents to be able to subscribe to any one item, and then when we update that item, you would get an email automatically saying that we have now put something on the minutes area or the agenda. We are also able to provide more documents that we keep in our office that people request information on, and we hope to build a page for our fire department as well to shine the things that they do for the residents as well.
Quick question, if I might, Mr. Chairman. Do we, for Kathy here, do we know, you mentioned a vendor, do we know who that vendor is at this point in time, or are there several under consideration?
The vendor is Revise. It's called Revise, and they do municipal and government sites all over the country. They do have some here in Wisconsin. They have templates that will help us reduce our cost, which is why I'm looking at $1,500 for the revision, $250 for the on-demand minutes, and we have one municipality in our county that just spent $35,000 for their website. So I think we've got a real good deal with this one. It's going to take us off of the state website that's currently outdated technology, and it makes it very difficult for us to update the packets and such.
And just to follow up, I know on the information packet, the proposal, if this is approved, is to take the money from account number of 51900.7, other general government contracted services, so there are funds in that account to cover it, and this is an appropriate use of that account for this purpose?
Yes.
Okay, then I will, to move this along, I will make the motion, and I guess, well, before I do, just clarification, I see the agenda says to spend $1,500, and am I missing something? I think the information packet had $1,750.
The $1,500 is for the revised template. The $250 is for the minutes on demand, and we have the $250 already allotted for in our budget. So I'm really looking for the $1,500 approval.
Is the motion seeking? Okay, then my motion will be to spend $1,500 to update the town website with the money for that expenditure to be taken from account 51900.7, other general government, contracted services, and I so move.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Further discussion?
So when this is all said and done, where is the website hosted?
It's actually hosted out of California, and then a duplicate out of, they actually have a duplicate host out of Texas, so if something happens in California, we're also covered in Texas.
So then, is the $1,500 one-time payment part of the include the hosting fee?
No, the hosting fee is, we have that in our budget, and this vendor has accepted the same price, the state price, for our hosting. So he's gonna do it for the same state rate that we've been paying, so it'll be an even wash.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I think updating websites is a great idea and it provides a great service, but I have to provide the legal caution. The public records law still applies. And so everything we do, no matter how much magic it can perform and comments, everything has to be preserved for 7 years unless we have an ordinance. So if you said, that's why social media is so tricky to use for municipalities. Because every time somebody likes you and unlikes you, theoretically, you're supposed to be keeping track of that. So if someone calls in it and says, I'd like to know who all liked something at 5 o'clock on last Tuesday, you're supposed to have that list, which everybody tells me is near impossible to do. But, so be very cautious when you're building any of this and thinking about this, how am I going to preserve everything at, and it's as simple as, when you used to have those scrolling things on your education channel. If somebody says, I think I just saw a commercial for Macy's department store on your channel, you have to be able to go back and replicate what you were showing at 9 o'clock that night to be able to prove to them and give them a copy of it. So remember, nobody ever thinks of this stuff, but it's mind-boggling when you think about it. So that's my only caution. We have to make sure we have ways to capture everything.
Anything further?
Just a quick question. With the new cameras, will this allow video streaming to go through the website as well?
The video streaming is that, the hang up on video streaming is our securities right now. It's our security in our network and our security on our PCs. That's what's keeping us from being able to stream. The website will give us a better clean link to Google Hangouts or YouTube.
Anything further? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to G, reinspection fees for non-compliance. The vast majority, it seems, of our issues on the non-compliance list are repeats, and we're finding that we're sending out either a planner or a building inspector at the town's expense over and over again for the same issues. And the discussion came up that perhaps we should have reinspection fees for non-compliance, an ordinance there that we're billing those individual people rather than having the town pay at large. And so we'd be looking for a motion to authorize the clerk to draft an ordinance and bring it back to the board for approval.
I make a motion that we have the clerk draft an ordinance to address reinspection fees for the non-compliance report.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And on to H, approval of financial assistance for EMT ambulance services. This is a request for a waiver of the fee for the ambulance based on a financial hardship. Attorney Macy and I had a discussion about this earlier, and his concern is that, well, I'll let you go ahead and explain your concern with regards to some people getting off and others not, and that could put us in possible harm's way.
Well, I just remind everyone that fees are supposed to be the cost of doing the business, and theoretically, if you give a waiver to somebody and you're trying to collect all of your fees back, then somebody's paying more if you're trying to collect all your fees back. So also there's always the concern is without a policy, and I know some communities, and I'm sure the chief can get them for you, have policies they look to in making this determination, and we don't have a policy. So at the minimum, I would recommend that before you gave such, it's my understanding you have some past practice, because you have looked at these in the past, but I was told today that we don't have a written policy that sets forth so that everybody's treated the same if you are going to make these kind of decisions. So those were the kind of comments I was making. I can certainly answer questions if there is anything.
So we would get ourselves out of potential harm's way if we had a policy that said if you are 80% or 90% within the poverty line, whatever the federal government deems that to be, that would potentially clear us from any potential future lawsuit?
No. All it would do is keep you from saying you're arbitrary and capricious. That's not to say somebody else isn't going to argue that they have been treated unfairly and they're paying too much because you gave somebody else some consideration. So I would never say that that'll get you out of it completely. I have lots of concerns about these kinds of policies and these kinds of issues, but at least you would have a basis for making the decision other than somebody claiming you like him and you don't like me, you know, that kind of thing. At least there would be a basis for the decision.
So would your advice to be table this over to the next meeting until we have a policy, at least a policy written?
Well, I'm not sure it's gonna take, you can deal with it, and they could always reapply if they're denied. If you approve it, you just have to understand you're at a risk that somebody's gonna say that, you know, what did you base it on? I mean, we need to have some discussion on what you're basing it on if you're gonna act on it. I don't know that you're gonna have a decision, you know, within 2 weeks, you're gonna have a policy to vote on. You know, so but you certainly can table it if you don't mind to do so.
Question? Mr. Macy, what's the stance on other communities that you deal with this issue? Is there one?
I'm not sure I know what you mean by stance. What is the basis or what do they look to? What is it?
Are they waiving fees, the other communities with hardship letters?
Boy, I'm trying to think. There appears to be a policy in the fire department in Mukwonago where they approve them if they meet the policy. But it's cut and dry. It's either you meet the policy standards or you don't, and so it's approved, yes, because you meet the standards, and it's denied, no, because you don't meet the standards. Does that make sense?
Okay, did I hear right? Is it a fire department policy or a town board policy?
It's a board policy, but the fire department reviews them. It's a joint fire department. So they have a joint public safety committee or something that looks at them and then makes a recommendation to the board. And then I think both the village board and the town board have to approve them. But they do approve them if they meet the policy, they don't approve them if they don't meet. It's just cut and dry.
Mr. Chairman, two questions, just clarification. This item on our agenda, this is a general discussion. This is not about somebody who's made a specific request, is that correct?
No, this is a specific request.
So as I understand it, this person provided this letter from ProHealth that indicated they were eligible for a 90% discount in ProHealth in justification of coming to us for a waiver of our fee.
Correct.
I
Okay,
think that's what we got here.
okay, so it is specific.
I just removed the names and the information for
That's fair.
privacy purposes.
I guess, and appreciate that. A follow-up question a little bit for Mr. Macy. If we did have a policy on this, whatever it is, would these things need to come to the board for consideration, or would that be a function reviewed by town staff or that type of thing? Would those come here if we had a policy, if we had a crisp policy?
That's a good question. I hadn't thought of that. I don't think, in all fairness, I can give you my gut reaction on that one. Theoretically, it could probably be written. I'm going to give an example, and the chief is here, and I'm not going to give an example of your community because I don't know the answer. I know in a number of communities that if you're on Social Security and you have an ambulance or a rescue call, you're charged a rate for that. And if you're not on Social Security, you're charged a different rate. That's automatically done per the policy, okay, in some communities. Now, I have some concern about that, because again, is that a legitimate basis for changing the, non-resident versus resident seems to always have been a justification. And so that might have been a better example to use, a less controversial one. You may have a policy where you have a resident charge and you have a non-resident charge, and the argument is, well, the residents are paying taxes, maybe they shouldn't have to pay quite so much for the service than a non-resident who's not paying taxes. So that's very typical, and that's a policy, and that does not come to the board, that's automatically how it's charged. Most of the policies that and I'm only familiar with a few of them that I'm aware of, I gotta say, the only community I know that they actually go is Mamaroneck for approval. So if other communities have waiver policies, they must be written in such a way that they're automatically.
So am I correct in saying that Medicaid covers our ambulance costs? Yes, I would.
Yes,
Oh, I'm
please.
sorry, I'm not the chair.
You're asking me to speak on something that I'm really not familiar about.
Good enough.
Here in our township, the town board has set the policy and the ordinances for billing. Fire department really isn't involved. In fact, when they passed last ordinance, I actually spoke against it. Just for these reasons, these are concerns that were not addressed in that ordinance. How do you handle waivers? What happens when somebody doesn't pay their bill or can't pay their bill? Those concerns weren't ever addressed in that ordinance. We do have a resident, non-resident charge. That's part of the ordinance. We also have an agreement with Medicare. Our folks in the clerk's office signed the agreement that said that we will accept Medicare payment. And that is substantially lower than what we bill. So, we have signed an agreement with that, and the town does accept a Medicare payment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a question, how do we deal with it now? I know there have been instances where they haven't paid for it. Does anybody know what we've done, or are those just open invoices?
Well, the billing is handled through a third-party billing service, right?
Yes.
So if it doesn't go out, I'm assuming at some point it goes to collections, like all other unpaid bills do.
Are you asking how we've dealt with these in the past?
Yeah.
These requests for?
No, specifically if somebody
Bills.
hasn't paid it.
Right.
And yes, I know it goes through the third party, but, does it just go through that level and then it goes away and we don't get any payment for it if they don't get paid?
I
I'm
can-
assuming that's how it works.
I can follow up on that with the third party.
Then I know there have been several where they haven't paid due to hardship or billing discrepancies or whatever.
We'll find out. What's the pleasure of the board? Is there a motion?
I'm not sure what the motion should be.
Well,
Are
we can either table this, we can approve the waiver of the fee, we can deny the waiver of the fee, wait for a policy to be instituted and put the policy on to the next discussion on the next agenda.
So, just for clarification, are we talking about this one particular instance, or are we looking at putting a policy for everything?
Well, policy would have to go on the next agenda for discussion, but in this particular case, it's this one fee.
Quick question, I understand we have then a specific request before us. This came from the individual? How did this come to us? And I understand, I don't want to jeopardize any confidentiality. How is it that this comes to us?
This came through our billing, our third-party billing.
From Three Rivers?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have, and again, I don't want to breach the confidentiality stuff, but do we have any idea the magnitude of this bill, or whether this is a town resident? Do we know anything about that? Maybe it's not all that important, but.
It is a town resident.
Okay. All right. I'll in this instance, accept this eligibility determination for financial assistance and discount the bill in accordance with this communication dated June 11th, 2014, and that we do put this item on future agendas for consideration of how we're gonna handle this matter going forward. I so move.
Second?
I'll second.
Further discussion?
Do we know how much this bill is? No?
Is this something different because all the other ones we've approved waivers, we've always known what the fee is?
Since this is the first time I've come across this, when I got it, they just specifically said I needed to bring it to the board, and then I took off the information for privacy, that's all I took off.
Well, we know what I don't know it off the top of my head, but we know what the fee is for an ambulance run. You know, like through, I don't know it off the top of my head, so I'm not gonna say it, but
Chief, you, off the top of your head, you know the fee? It's in the $300-ish
I
range,
thought
if
it was
I recall.
$350.
I couldn't tell you what the fee is. It's in the ordinance.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Motion carries. On to accounts payable, authorized payment of bills in the amount of $89,511.28. Your motion?
There's no engineering bill on this one?
Correct.
I move we pay that amount.
Second?
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
All right.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We are adjourned.